Well, medicinal cannabis has boomed since it was legalised in 2016. An ABC investigation has found that some doctors who signed up to work at cannabis-specific clinics felt pressured to write scripts for patients in their first consultation. One doctor has even told the ABC they were being paid contingent upon scripts being written. New data obtained by 7:30 shows scripts are being written for high-strength medicinal cannabis products with alarming speed. One doctor issued more than 17,000 scripts in 6 months, equivalent to a script every 4 minutes across a working day. That data has come from the health regulator APRA. 7:30 spoke to Rohan Dawson, a former police officer who accessed medicinal cannabis after he saw an advertisement for a free consultation.
So I clicked on the link, I suppose, and the ball was rolling, and all of a sudden I was signed up and had a 10-15 minute phone consult with a lady who wasn't a doctor, and all of a sudden there was dope heading to my door. So it's really as simple as that.
Well, National Health reporter Elise Worthington has the story and joins me now in the studio. Elise, just if we can backtrack a bit, for those who don't know what medicinal cannabis is, can you just explain that and how it's being prescribed?
So medicinal cannabis was legalised almost a decade ago, and you might remember some of those really moving scenes of parents of children who had terminal illnesses or kids with epilepsy that was unable to be treated any other way, and they really galvanised both sides of politics and advocated for this to be more widely available. But since then there's been a real shift in the way that medicinal cannabis is prescribed and used in Australia, and what happened is in 2020 we had obviously COVID, and there was a real shift to telehealth consulting. And a lot of medicinal cannabis clinics started up where it's sort of a one-stop shop. You can get your appointment with a doctor, have a prescription, and then have the product shipped to you. And that's really driven a huge increase in the number of people who are using medicinal cannabis, and also the strength of the products. So a shift from CBD-based oils, which is what you probably saw in those early days, was being used most often, to now higher strength THC-containing smokable or vapable cannabis flower. And THC is the ingredient which causes a high. So there's been a real drive in demand for amount and also strength of product that's getting out to Australians.
Okay, so what is the experience for a consumer when they're taking medicinal cannabis that's prescribed by a doctor?
So experts have made it clear that for a lot of people they won't have, serious side effects, but the issue is that patients need to be really carefully assessed to assure that they don't have a history of pre-existing mental health conditions, other medications that could interact with medicinal cannabis when it's prescribed. And that's what's really been called into question by some of these shocking statistics that have come from our National Medical Practitioner Regulator. So when we're talking about a pharmacist dispensing 1 million products in a year for medicinal cannabis, that's 2,600 a day, like a huge quantity. And we're also talking about doctors. They found 8 practitioners that appeared to have issued more than 10,000 scripts each in 6 months. So that's really equating to a script every few minutes. And the question is, when patients are seeking a particular treatment, calling up a telehealth company where they know that's what is being sold and what doctors are prescribing, are they getting the best medical care? Are they checking their full medical history? Are they speaking to their regular GP to ensure that it is the right product for them? Because a lot of the things that medicinal cannabis is being prescribed for, the main 3 conditions are anxiety, insomnia and chronic pain. And it's actually, there isn't a huge wealth of good clinical trial evidence showing that it's effective for those conditions, and there's a lot of other treatments that people should try first. So they really want to check that this is being prescribed appropriately and that there aren't conflicts of interests and doctors who are putting profits over patients.
Is there a suggestion, before I ask you about what the regulator had to say, is there a suggestion that people are accessing this who are using it for recreational purposes?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a lot of research done on that, and they have found that there's an overlap between the medicinal cannabis market and the recreational market. One of the things that is driving that is the ease of access, because it can be done over the phone very quickly and you can get it shipped to you. Also the price. Medicinal cannabis is actually really rapidly reduced in price, and that's because a lot is being imported from overseas. So the price has dropped. But because medicinal cannabis is not an approved therapeutic good, it's not checked for safety, quality or efficacy by the TGA, most products that is. So the cost is going down. There's an easy way to access it. And some of the experts we spoke to said, listen, they don't really have an issue with recreational users accessing it through the medical market. But the issue is that's not what the whole system was designed for, and doctors don't want to be treated like glorified drug dealers and prescribing products to people who may not necessarily need them.
So what is the regulator saying in all of this?
Well, the regulator, the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency, has launched a task force looking at medicinal cannabis prescribing issues. They've identified that this is an emerging area of risk, and that's because the THC containing products are categorised as a Schedule 8 medicine like opioids. So there is potential for harm and addiction, and they want to make sure that these products are just getting to people who need them. And as part of that work, they're analysing the data and looking through what scripts doctors and nurse practitioners, who can also write scripts for medicinal cannabis, are really writing, and going through and looking at those figures and seeing the amount of scripts that are being written by some doctors every day. They really have questions about how this patient care is being delivered and whether it's the best thing for patients.
Because that stat was extraordinary, 1 every 4 minutes, a script that was being written there. You wouldn't think that that's even physically possible.
Well, that's the question, and a lot of these online clinics do quizzes. You might have an earlier consultation with a nurse, and in many of the cases of patients we've spoken to, they received a script that was issued by a doctor they had never spoken to or heard of themselves. So there is clearly something going on with the way that these scripts are getting out so quickly. And the other issue is whether doctors are, facing a conflict of interest, being incentivised to write scripts quickly, being paid by the script. And that's something I think the regulator's really interested in looking at more.
Elise, I'm really looking forward to the story. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And you can see that full story tonight on 7:30.